Hey there, YouTube. What's going on?
Hello again. I don't know if you remember me, but I remember you.
It is now time for part 1 of 80 female privileges examined. Link to the introduction below, and a quick reminder about the criteria for examination.
I didn't even watch or listen to, really, his video. For that reason, I will, of course, have to attempt to find sources on these statements myself, because Mr. Circus Bread left me none of the sources in his original video. Fair warning, a few of these sources will be Wikipedia. Now for this, I'm going to be using the word privilege like it's usually meant in these kinds of instances, by people that actually know what they're talking about. The sociological definition of privilege, not the dictionary definition of privilege.
1. In order for your criteria to be accepted, one must agree to the terms. Sorry to tell you, I do not accept feminist theory as credible. 2. Feminists really don't know what they're talking about when they talk about privilege, so consider that claim completely dismissed. And 3. Accepting your criteria would be like talking to a creationist and accepting Genesis as proof the world was created in 6,000 years. The notion is already built on faulty theory. I find it ironic that feminists like to use the dictionary to prove feminism is for equality, but don't like to use the dictionary when it comes to racism, sexism, and I don't know, privilege. Where I come from, we call that cherry picking. So I'm going to use the dictionary and the definition of privilege to back up my counterclaims, as that is much more credible than your feminist theory.
So let's get this show on the road. Number 1. Women have the privilege of not being required to sign up for selective service at age 18 in the United States of America in order to receive the benefits men receive for doing so, including the right to vote, student loans, federal employment, and naturalization. Now first let me say this. I am against the draft. I think that under no circumstances ever should there be a draft. But let's go through the criteria outlined before.
No need. The draft. It doesn't matter if the draft is no longer a worry. The point is, if you don't register, you are penalized by the government and you lose privileges if you don't. You may be against the draft, and feminists morally speaking may be against the draft, but actions speak louder than words. Show me that feminist campaign and how much money is funding that campaign to get rid of the draft, and we can discuss this inequality again. As for your patriarchy nonsense, any and all patriarchal arguments forthwith will be dismissed like the trash theory it is. So, is this a privilege? Yes.
Number 2. Women have the privilege of not being conscripted in the West if a state of total war is declared by their country's government. Once again, I'd like to say I'm against draft, conscription, etc. It's probably have been folded in to the first one, but whatever. So number 1, is this factual? Well, it's not really known.
I beg to differ. It is reasonable to assume, since the draft only affects men, that women, at least here in the US, will not be conscripted.
The last time that there was a state of total war in the West was World War II, when women weren't allowed to even be in the military in most, if not all, Western nations. But let's leave aside the total war caveat for just a moment and look at conscription in the West. And once again, in the United States, women weren't allowed to serve in combat until very recently. If we look at other Western countries, Israel is typically considered to be part of the West.
Well, other countries like Israel and Norway as examples of countries that conscript females doesn't undo the privileges granted to women here in the US. Israeli and Norse law does not influence the US.
And they have female conscription. They have universal female conscription. I mean, there's religious opt-outs, but if you do that, you can't vote. Norway has female conscription. Apparently, the UK had female conscription in World War II, just not into the military, into something else. The US came close to conscripting females into the nurses' corps in World War II. With these things in mind, I'm just going to label this as not factually correct.
The Nurses Selective Service Bill of 1945 didn't pass, giving at least the women here in the US this privilege. So it is reasonable to assume they wouldn't be conscripted now.
It does not pass the first criterion. So conclusion, even taking away the caveat of state of total war, this is on shaky ground. Any discussion, of course, as to whether this would apply to a state of total war is pure conjecture, because we haven't had a state of total war since 45. So it's not worthy of a statement of fact that women will not be conscripted in a state of total war, because very simply we don't know.
Until Congress revisits this, it is a privilege currently awarded to U.S. women. However, you are correct that there are women that have been conscripted, so this is not a universal privilege given to all women.
Number 3. Women have the privilege of having standards lowered to suit them if and when they choose to join the military voluntarily. The gist of this is supposed to say that there are different standards for men and women, and that is correct. Is this a privilege? I would say no.
And this is why feminists cannot be taken seriously. Having standards lowered so you can join any organization is definitely a privilege. It's not just the military, this has been done with some fire departments as well. Because a woman couldn't meet the physical requirements, the organization lowered the expectation for the person so they could join said department. Men do not get this. Ever. You creating a new feminist criteria to fit your needs does not change this to not a privilege. Anyone can create a new criteria to fit a narrative. However, it still doesn't change the fact that lowering standards for anyone so they can do a given job is a privilege. As one group of people, men, are not afforded the same thing as another group of people, women, making it, in fact, a privilege.
Women have different body types than men do. These physical standards are meant to ensure that the individual can accomplish their job. When the standards as they are, women are able to accomplish the job that they are needed to accomplish.
False. The standardized testing should be based on job and not gender then, and we both know that ain't gonna happen. A man doing a desk job shouldn't have to run a mile and a half in 7 minutes, and a woman doing the exact same desk job shouldn't get the privilege of running a mile and a half in 9 minutes. Having served in the military for over 12 years, you are spouting a lot of hooey. As men, we are still expected to hold a higher standard of fitness than women, irrespective of job.
This is essentially a biological quote-unquote privilege, not a social privilege, so it does not meet the criteria.
Your criteria is not my criteria. Biological, social, it's still a privilege.